Welcome to My Ministry Mission, where faith's transformative power comes to life. Sit back and relax as we dive into God's Word together, finding hope, guidance, and inspiration for our lives. Be sure to check out today's show notes for extra resources, updates, and ways to connect with our growing community. Or head on over to myministrymission.com to get more information, contact me, become a guest, and so much more. God has placed a calling of ministry in my heart, and I'm answering that call, sharing my journey of faith, tackling tough questions, and encouraging you to live boldly for Christ. So I hope you're ready to ignite your spiritual flames. My name is Jason, and this is my mission. If you're seeking a place to learn and grow in your faith with like-minded believers, look no further. I've created a brand new Discord server called Ministry Mission Fellowship, and it's waiting for you. Head on over to myministrymission.com/go/discord and join me, Jason, and a growing community of Christians where we can share, encourage each other, and dive deeper into God's Word together. Whether you're new to the faith or have been walking with Christ for years, Ministry Mission Fellowship is a place for fellowship, Bible studies, heartfelt discussions, or maybe just casual conversations with other Christians. Visit us today at myministrymission.com/go/discord or click on the link in the show notes, and let's grow in Christ together. Thank you for listening and welcome to the podcast. I am your host, Jason McConnell. In this episode, I have the privilege of hosting another amazing guest whose story may read like a country song, but his testimony sings like a psalm. Kent Maxson is a gifted singer, songwriter, and now author, known in the musical world for working with legends like Will Banister, Mondlock, and even Garth Brooks. You heard me right, Garth Brooks. Kent knows firsthand that life can hit you with more than you think you can handle. When in 2013, he walked through 4 of the top 5 most stressful events anyone could imagine, and all in the same year. The fallout could have been the end of his story, but God had other plans. Through heartbreak, questions, and struggles, Kent rediscovered the presence of God in a deeply personal way. And you can find out more about him at kentmaxson.com, KentMaxson.com. I'll put his link in the show notes, along with his social media and whatever else I can find for you. Get comfortable because Kent's testimony will encourage you, his words will challenge you, and his music will move you. So let's welcome Kent to the show. So thank you, Kent, for joining us, giving us the gift of your time today.
I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. I love kind of starting off with, let's get to know you a little bit better. Spill the tea, as the kids would say these days.
Okay.
So, if we could start with just sharing your favorite Bible verses. I mean, you were gracious enough to give me 3 good ones. I think I like the first one that I think is one of my favorite was Mark 9:24.
Yeah.
I do believe, help me overcome my unbelief. So let's start there and tell me what makes that so amazing for you.
Well, I remember that story from a long time ago, but the year that you talked about when 4 of the 5 most stressful things you can go through, I had to tell myself, I do believe. And then I wondered because of everything I was going through. So, that one really, that started around 2014, that one really became important to me. And you'd asked me for some other ones. John 14:27, peace, I leave with you my peace. I give to you not as the world gives, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. That one's special for a lot of reasons. But I think sometimes I know that I'm a worrier, and so I have to focus on that one.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
Yeah, that's a big one for me. I think Hebrews 11, verse 1 is very important to me. Now, faith is the belief in things hoped for, the assurance of things not seen. I wish that sometimes God would have a big lightning bolt that would come down and strike us around, or he'd send an angel or a dove or something like that. But sometimes you just, he's given me signs that I've picked up, over time, but it's never been that big booming baritone that I want coming out of the clouds. So you just have to, it's a choice. And
it is.
I choose to believe.
Yes. And I think for me, at least, some of the recent tribulations that we've gone through in our family it's not only a belief, it is making the choice to surrender. And that's where that belief is rooted, because there are things that I can't do anything about. Like, I'm helpless, and I have to accept that and be like, it's in your hands, God. I'm going to have to trust you. Yeah,
I agree. When I went through the year that you talked about, a lot of it, from November when, so the events all took place between January and November, as far as the 4 of the 5. After that is when I started life over and moved back to Nashville. And I don't remember much. So my ex-wife told me she wanted a divorce in November 20th. I don't remember really much of anything as far as making a conscious decision from there till January 8th, which is when I moved back to Nashville. It was just kind of like a blur. And but now when I look back after that, from when I got back to Nashville, I know that I was lost in all these ways, but I have such a peace and joy. It's hard to explain about that period of time. I actually daydream sometimes about those quiet moments and the things that I went through, because little by little miracles were happening. And I probably saw more miracles, not that they haven't happened in the rest of my life, but I saw more miracles in that first year of Nashville than I ever noticed before.
Yeah. And you mentioned 2013. I didn't want to spill too much about it. Let you do that. And I know there's some boundaries on that. But would you mind taking us back to that period of time? Let's talk about your walk through that, if you don't mind.
Don't mind at all. This is really where the book started. So early in 2013, I started having chest pains, and they rushed me to the hospital. And as soon as they got me there, they took me into the emergency room, and I was scared stiff. I didn't know for sure what was going on. And I remember that before they put me under, all your life is, like, dear God, do this and everything like that. And Heavenly Father, Abba, all I could say is, God, help me. Grant me to wake up. There was nothing fancy about my prayer then. And I came out of it, and I found out that I had AFib and pericarditis. So from then until August, I went into the doctors or emergency room or some kind of thing 8 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was, and every time, I remember once I was traveling for my job and started having this stuff, and it's really a weird feeling whenever you're in AFib. But anyway, so in August, I finally had the first of my heart ablation surgeries, and right after that surgery is when my ex-wife told me that she was thinking about getting a divorce. And so that was happening. I knew I had the second surgery coming up in September. And so right before the Labor Day weekend, I got a phone call from my boss, and he said that the company was going out of business. And so I just lost my job, and I found out that my health insurance was going to expire. It was actually going to expire one day before my surgery. So they moved my surgery back so it'd be one day before it, or forward, whatever that is. So I had the surgery. And then my ex-wife and I went through counseling and everything again for the next couple of months. And then on November 20th, she told me she wanted the divorce. And I walked out, and the next couple of months, like I said, was just a blur. And I really didn't know what to do. I'd lost my job, so I one way or the other, I had to have a job. But I never wanted to leave Nashville the first time. I did it to take care of my family. And I'd been in where I lived in Texas for 22 years, and I decided, and it wasn't, I tell people I didn't really decide it. It was just like I knew I had to go back to Nashville because that's all I ever wanted to do was write songs and make music.
Yeah.
So January 8th, my best friend from high school and a basketball team, we drove out, and I moved into the bedroom of one of the two roommates that I'd had 30 years before. They had bought houses side by side, and I felt like, you talk about feeling like a failure, 30 years later, and you're still a roommate, and you have nothing really to your name. So it was horrible. So I couldn't sleep. I tell people that when you're going through a crisis like that, or a divorce, the days you can get by because there's something to distract you, read, go to lunch or something like that. But at nights, it's just absolutely, the silence is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I can remember laying in my bed and saying my prayers, and I felt like they stopped at the ceiling, that they didn't go any further. And that's when I was wondering, are you there? And that's scary when you've been a follower of Jesus all your life, and then you question if he's there. So I would get up in the middle of the night. Actually, I didn't even go to bed most of the times, but I'd get up and midnight, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and I'd go out walking the neighborhood there. And if you've been to Nashville, the part that I've been at, there's no street curbs or anything like that. It's blacktop. It's like being in the country. Mm-hmm. So I'd walk those streets, and I usually ended up at this high school racetrack or track field, and I'd walk around and run around until I couldn't walk or run anymore, and then I'd stumble back to the bedroom that I'd rented. And when you're walking those streets at night, and it's complete quiet, except you'd hear like street lights humming or critters running around or crickets. Well, little by little, the events that brought me back to life, there's a lot of things I can talk about. Get involved in church again, going to a lot of different meetings. I started to heal. Well, as I started writing songs again, some of the publishers here in town started sending to me young kids to show them how to write songs or help refine their arts. And one day I was writing with this young girl, very talented young lady, and she had just submitted a song to a pretty big artist. And so I said, "What did you hear?" She said, "Crickets." I'd never heard that before. And so she explained it to me. And as soon as she explained it to me, it hit me just like that. That is what I felt like, those crickets walking around. And if you go back to the Bible, you talked about, there's a section where the prophet's in a cave and says, God wasn't in the wind. God wasn't in the thunder.
Yeah.
And then there's that small, still voice. And that's what crickets was to me. I was looking for this hallelujah moment where he was going to come down and rescue me. And the whole time, there was all these little miracles going on, people that I met, meetings that I went to. I actually ended up getting a job, president of a small company. And the guy that hired me had been my store manager 30 years before when I worked at Circuit City. And I hadn't seen him, but I think I saw him once at a trade show and that had been like 10 years before that. Stumbled into him, and next thing I know, I've got a job. And there's all these other stories I could tell, but I'll stop right there. I've already talked a little bit too much.
Yeah, no, that's good. And that kind of leads us back to, the 4 of the 5 things, the divorce. I think you said divorce, health problems, moving, and losing your job. And the only thing you didn't experience in 2013 that's on that top 5 list is the death of a loved one.
Yeah.
So that's a lot to take in not even a full year, just, first 3/4 of a year, if you will.
Yeah, I don't like to wait around. Let's just get it over with.
Yeah, right. Let's just do it. Rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, exactly.
So it sounds like everything kind of eased you into this realization. I mean, was there ever a point where there was a definitive turning point to you? I mean, was crickets it?
Well, no, I wasn't aware of it at the time about crickets. It really was a series of small miracles. So what I call it. How do I go into all this? So when I told you I was walking the neighborhood, And I walked by this one little house every time, and it was just a beautiful little house. And I was kind of lamenting that I didn't have a house anymore. And so I, there's when I just, I'd walk by it as I was going to this track to run around and everything. But when I got this job with this company and became this president of Small Thing, he'd asked me where I was living, and I told him, and he said, "Well, are you planning on doing this?" I said, "Well, eventually I want to get a house again." And he said, "Well, what if I gave you the down payment?" And he basically gave me a bonus a year before I would have earned it, because he said, "I know you're going to earn it." So he gave me the down payment so that I could buy this little house that I'd walk by every day. And it was just, I couldn't believe it. So then I reconnected with Garth, and I reconnected with the name probably won't mean anything, but it's you need to know who he is. Kent Blasey. Kent wrote with Garth things like "If Tomorrow Never Comes," "Ain't Going Down Till the Sun Comes Up," the Black Dress song for another person. He's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame here in Nashville. And again, when I'd left Nashville, I kept up with them for maybe 3 to 5 years. And they always had to change their phone numbers because someone would find it and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I finally got tired of calling the office and asking for it. And I said, well, my life I'm not doing that anymore. And I just kind of let it slip. So when I reconnected with them, it was just kind of like another stepping stone to getting back into what I always wanted to do and what I'd done before I'd left, which was writing songs. So just miracle upon miracle took place over that year and led me back to where I'm writing songs again.
Yeah. And you had, when we had talked before, you had gone through how you met Garth Brooks, which, I mean, that's a wow moment, right? Definitely an attention grabber.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to share that, but you kind of tied that into miracles in the sense that they're not always these big booming moments in your life.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things we all think that a miracle is being turning water into wine right then and there. And the most common question I get asked is, no one's ever heard of me. I'm a songwriter. But when they hear that I've written with Garth Brooks, everyone's, and thank goodness he's good about, he's been very good to me. But so I'm asked, how did you meet Garth? It's a crazy story. So I was working in a Circuit City, and I'm big, I'm about 6'7", and so whenever in the area we were in, we had a lot of vagrants, things come in, so they would usually have me escort them out the building. And one day this guy comes in, and I mean, he looked ragged and old greasy sweatpants, and looked like he hadn't bathed in about a month. So my boss came up and says, take him out of the store. Okay, so I go over, and he was sitting on this end cap, and I go up to him, and as I got closer, he started looking familiar. And I said, do I know you? And he said, Randall Tex Cobb, damn glad to meet you. and I don't know if you know him, but he was the boxer and also an actor. Well, he's from Abilene, Texas, and I grew up in Midland, Texas, and my parents lived for a while in Abilene. So we started talking, and so he found out from Texas. He said, well, what's a Texas boy like you doing out here? I said, well, I'm a songwriter. Well, you are? Well, my wife's a songwriter. So then he takes me over and introduces me to his wife, Sharon. So I started talking to him, and they were in to buy a stereo. So I end up showing them stereo, and they bought one. They said, we'll buy it as long as you'll come over and put it together. And I said, well, I'll put it together if you'll listen to my music. And they said, okay. So I go over, put the stereo together. And when I finished, they listened to my songs. And Sharon said, you're pretty good. Why don't you call Bob at ASCAP and tell him I sent you? I said, okay. So I called up to ASCAP and said, can I speak to Bob? I'm not going to say his last name. And they said, well, Bob doesn't work here anymore. He left. But since you're a friend of Randall and Sharon's, here's his phone number. Okay. So I called the number, and I get a hold of Bob and ask him if he could help me. He says, well, I don't do that anymore. But since you're a friend of Randall and Sharon's, come on in. I'll listen to what you got. Okay. So I go in and I play my songs. He says, you're pretty good. I don't do that stuff anymore because I resigned so that I could manage a new act. His name is Garth. Would you like to write with him? Sure.
Garth who?
Well, no one knew who he was back then.
Right.
So I met him before the big label deal. And that's really only half the story for me but we look for, I said, water to turn into wine. And God sometimes is working, not sometimes, most of the time is working just behind the scenes. And you don't see the connections about this little thing that happened. Like my boss from 30 years ago, being the president, hiring me to be president of a company, just all the little, and my roommates from 30 years ago, having living side by side and giving me a room. I mean, all these things took place.
Yeah.
Now, the rest of the story, and forgive me for talking so much.
No, you're good.
Has to do with, how I even got to Nashville, for any of this to happen. So I was in Lubbock, Texas, and my girlfriend and I split up. I just finished college. And so a couple months later, I called her back and I said, any chance we're going to get back together again? She says, nope, you need to move to Nashville. You always wanted to. And I'm thinking, I don't remember ever saying that. I always thought my music was better for L.A., and I'd gone out and talked to some labels out in L.A., so I was really surprised about this. So I was going to the church that she went to. That's how you get more members. You go to the church of the girlfriend.
Right.
So I went we had some kind of a social, this college social, and I was talking to this guy, and I told him what she said, and he says, well, my in-laws live in Nashville. I bet you could stay with them for a couple of days till you found a place to live. So that started me on the way to Nashville. Well, the last night that I was there, I was part of a group, a music group. And so I told him I'd finished recording the album we were on, and I'd do the last few shows that we had booked. So the very last show that we did, I'm up there singing, and she comes in with another friend of mine. She gets on the very front row, sits in his lap, and starts hugging and kissing on him. So I'm up on stage, and I said, man, I'm standing up here dying. You're sitting down there acting like a fool. And that stuck with me forever. So when I moved from Texas to Nashville, I stayed with this couple, very nice people. And so I was looking for a church, and they said, well, why don't you come to church with us? Okay. So I go to that church. And not long after that is when a lady there just came up to me in church, says, hey, and she knew I was looking for a job. She goes, Circuit City's hiring. Why don't you go, apply? And so that started that part of my journey. Well, when I met Garth, we really hit it off. He's such a nice guy. And I mean, really, I cannot say enough positives and wonderful things about him. So the second writing session we ever had, I took in what we call the hook. The title is what it became. And I'd taken that phrase that I'd said in my mind about I'm standing up here dying, sitting down there acting like a fool, and I turned it around to, from where I'm sitting, I can see where we stand. And so Garth and I wrote that thing. And I cannot tell you how many people recorded it, but it was never released. One time, a very large, I'm not even going to say his name, a very big star had recorded it. I was told it was going to be on the album. About a month and a half, 2 months before the album came out, they called me up and said they'd taken it off. And this is when I was in Texas. I was just crushed. So not long after that, I called back to Garth's place, and I was talking to a lady named Lana, and I said, I've had it. I was writing long distance in, and I said, I'm quitting this. I can't do it anymore. And she was encouraging, no, you're so talented. And she goes, besides, you got that single coming out by Gary Allan. Who's Gary Allan? And what song? I'd never heard of it. So that was when I found out that finally, from where I'm sitting, had been recorded and was being released. And that was and that's how I got my gold record, which is my biggest claim to fame, is a song I wrote with Garth. It was recorded by Gary Allan, and I got a gold record. I did a lot of talking there, but there's a lot of miracles that took place in that.
Yeah, I often look at when we're in a situation, we feel like we're over our head, and we find ourselves on the other side of it somehow. We get through it. And, there's a point in that scenario where I think God just reaches down and picks us up and drags us to the finish line. And because you look back and you're like, I don't know how I did this, but you didn't. God did.
Well, the first thing you said was where the title of the book really is, there's no way out but through. Some people can give up, but the only way you're going to make it. And, sometimes you crawl, sometimes you run, but you just keep moving forward. And it's kind of hard sometimes seeing God working, sometimes, most of the time, because it's not like he announces it.
No.
And you look back and you see things that we say was good fortune, luck, a good break. And you can, if you're not a believer, that may be what you think, but he's got his hand. One of the things that a friend of mine kind of drew to my attention as I was telling my story, he says, I told him how I'd prayed ever since I was 8 years old to be a songwriter, and laid in bed making that prayer. He says, and he told me, he says, that could have started way back with your grandparents. That, that maybe one of them said a prayer that my generations may prosper. Or maybe it was your dad who did this. And you just don't know. God doesn't necessarily work in like a flashlight in the moment. He can work throughout time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great segue to your book, No Way Out But Through. Before we go too far down that path, I do want to thank you for not only a copy, but a signed copy, very thoughtfully written signed copy, along with a companion CD that goes with the book, which is it's very unique. I've never seen anything like that before. So you have the book, you have the CD, and the songs in the book tie into the chapters of the book. Yeah. And it's just very well put together. It's, I haven't finished it, but it's very, very well written. It's elegantly written, and it's very easy to read and very entertaining. So, thank you for writing it, and thank you for sending me a copy.
I appreciate you having me on here. And you're right, there is a CD that you can purchase, but you can also, there's a QR code in the back of the book, and you can go and listen to them or buy them streaming off my website. So it's just...
you had mentioned that before, and I had to laugh because I think I sent you an email about this. Like, I don't have CD players like anywhere, and I have the CD, and I'm like, I really want to listen to this. And I dug through drawer after drawer, box after box, and I finally found the one like USB CD DVD ROM that I plug into my computer and listen to it. And then I'm like, oh wait, there's a QR code. I could have been listening to this like an hour ago. But
I mainly have the CDs for when I do live presentations and shows. And I make a package deal if they want to buy them together. I'm an old guy. I like to physically hold something versus...
Me too. Spotify's great. Don't get me wrong. iTunes, Spotify, those things are wonderful. Amazon, the Kindles, they're great. But for me, there's nothing like touching a book and flipping the pages and inserting a CD. I grew up on that stuff, so maybe that's why. But
I'm with you.
Not quite the same. So anyways, you got this idea of the book from crickets. You kind of explain that, and I love this story. I love how it, things just happen to line up. We know it was God, but from the outside, it's like things just happen to line up. Like you said, call it luck, whatever you want to do. Believers know better. But the first song in the book is entitled Crickets, and it goes along with the first chapter. And that first chapter does explain a lot of what we've already talked about in a very, like I said, very elegant way. So I thought, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and play the song, and then we can kind of talk about the book and go into more details on that, if that's good for you.
Yep, that'll work.
All right. I've got it on my sound pad here. I'm just going to hit the button, so hang tight.
My bills are bigger than the checks I'm getting. The rumor is the shop will be shutting down. Some days I feel like giving up and quitting. I'm listening for your voice as I cry out, where are you now? 'Cause all I hear are crickets and the evening breeze blowing through the trees. I send you prayers from on my knees, begging you, God, please talk to me. If you've answered, Lord, I must have missed it. Are you near? 'Cause all I hear are crickets. Came out here to do a little thinking, lay in the grass and stare up at the sky. If you exist, why do you keep me waiting? Do you care if your children live or die? Why do I even try? When all I hear are crickets and the evening breeze blowing through the trees, I send you prayers from on my knees, begging you, God, please talk to me. If you've answered, Lord, I must have missed it. Are you near? 'Cause all I hear are crickets. I thought I'd hear you in the thunder, a big voice up in the sky. I never dreamed you'd speak so softly, like a whisper in the night. And now I hear you in those crickets, and the evening breeze blowing through the trees. I send you prayers from on my knees, but I hear you when you talk to me. You've always answered, Lord, I just missed it. I know you're near, 'cause now I hear you in the crickets. Oh Lord, I hear you in the crickets.
Wow. You know, if you can't understand that song, if it's not deeply personal to you when you listen to it, your faith hasn't been tested. Because when it is, you really understand that feeling of, hey God, are you out there? And I can tell that the song, I mean, it touched me when I first heard it, and it's got to be very deeply personal to you as well.
Yeah, it's special for me. There's a couple of songs on that album and in that book that are very special to me.
Yeah, and they're all. I mean, I've listened to almost the whole CD. They're all, they all have this very similar. I don't know what to call it in musical terms, but similar feel to them, in the sense that they are, they've got great lyrics. It's not overshadowed by the musical composition. They're just well balanced, and you really get a lot out of them, even though it's not super fancy and synthetic and everything. They're very real, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that I wanted to make sure of is that we didn't. It's not like a song that I'm going to put doing in front of a huge, like an auditorium. We took the production from all electric guitars and drums and all that things, and it's just acoustical instruments, guitars. What you heard was, like bongos. Everything was very natural without any electronics involved in it, because it needed to be naked, because I wanted the book to be naked.
Yeah, absolutely. So at a 30,000 foot level, what's the book about? What are we gonna read when we get into it?
Wow, I wasn't expecting that question.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I would hope that in one of the chapters, at least one of them, if not all of them, that you will be able to draw a parallel to your life, something that you've gone through or experienced. And maybe it'll open your eyes to the possibilities of God and what he does and how he's present in so many different situations. Not most of them, a lot of those songs are dealing with down subjects, like why do good things happen to bad people? But then there's also some that I think are very positive, like one of my favorite songs on the that I've ever written in my life is called Memories, Not Dreams. I want to die with memories, not dreams. And that's one of the things I came out of this whole period with, is I don't know how much time I've got left. None of us really do. And I spent so much of my life working, making the dollar to take care of my family and to do everything, that's an outstanding citizen would do or whatever. And I let a lot of things pass me by, just the sheer enjoyment of life and seeing God in the, the babies, or God in the trees, or God in the birds, or just a simple thing like a waterfall or a river. We just miss it because we get so tied up in everything. And, here's something, this kind of going on subject. My wife, Cindy, I got remarried. My wife, Cindy, has no fear. I mean, you've heard Captain Kirk go where no one's ever gone before. There's nothing that frightens her. And I've always been kind of a, afraid of my own shadow kind of guy. She has dragged me kicking and screaming into so many things. And I came out on the other side like, wow, that was cool. And so I'm doing more of that than I ever did in my life. And I owe that to her.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm glad you got remarried. Certainly deserve it. Your book kind of combines, from what I can tell so far, combines these personal stories, biblical truths, and these original songs. And it's kind of well woven between the three of those, because you quote scripture, you use NIV, KJV, and I think one other Bible translation throughout the book. You quote your own song in appropriate context within the book, and then you put the lyrics to the songs at the end of the chapters, and then you can go listen to the song, and it's just this wonderful balance of entertainment information. And I was just like, how did you come up with this unique combination?
I'm going to draw from two different sources on that one. Whenever I release a song, before this book ever came out, no one ever heard of me, but I'll release a song, through the internet, Facebook, whatever, CD Baby, Spotify. And I usually put in like a 1-paragraph story. Maybe it's what inspired me. Maybe it was an event that took place, what I want people to hear out of it, things like that. And that's really how the whole book started, is I wrote Crickets and I had this one little paragraph. Then I was talked into doing more. So that's one explanation. The other explanation about why the different ways, I mentioned that I was gone for 22 years from Nashville and had taken care of my family. And in that time, I was a training manager. I traveled the world teaching people about audio and electronics. And one of the things that I learned as I was going through this is that people learn different ways. And you have to deliver your message in more than one way. Some people are audio learners. They learn just by you speaking. Others are visual. They'll be the ones that watch YouTube, or, they got to see that. Others have to have it written down, like a step 1, step 2, step 3. But everyone, no matter what their learning style, they learn it better and more completely if they have to do it. The physical, and if there's someone watching them say, no, you don't want to do it that way, and stepping them through it. So that's kind of where I came from. I thought, I need to make sure this thing comes out where I reach people however they learn, however they process things. So that's why it's, I tried. And the other thing is, whenever you're doing training like I do, I would, stories are how people, Jesus did parables. We learn through stories. So if you want someone to get a truth out of it, hide it inside of a story. And then after they've heard the story, which hopefully is entertaining, then you can extract the learning lesson, and then you can bring it all together with music, words, and feelings.
It's great. Yeah, if anybody listens to this podcast, you know that we've got a parable project going on. And my friend Laura and I, we did a whole series of Revelations. Took us like 9 months. I think it ended up being like 14 episodes. It was insane. But we've started a new parable project. And what's fun is that the word parable basically means to toss alongside. So you're basically taking a truth or a story and tossing it alongside a truth. And that's true. Jesus did that all the time. And there were multiple reasons why he did it. But one of those is because we love stories. We love hearing stories. We love storytellers. And it's an easy way to remember stuff. I love that.
Yep, I agree.
So, for you as the author, what's the biggest takeaway from your book?
Wow. Man, you come up with some questions I didn't ever expect. I guess there's a couple of them, but the main one I think is no matter what situation you're going through, like there's 13 chapters, God is in there. You know, we don't necessarily see him as he's operating, and sometimes it's on the other end of whatever took place. And I tried to bring out some of those things, but the main thing, I guess, is there's a chapter in why does bad things happen to good people? We question that. Why did this child die? Sometimes we won't know on this side of heaven, but
yeah,
it's there. That's, I guess, the big thing is about the whole scenario. What we set up is God is present no matter what the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think faith crosses over into surrender, because when you're in the middle of that, I did an episode, I think it released the week prior to this one, but my sister passed away. And in the middle of that, you're asking, she was a doctor. She was helping people. She was a good person. Why this? Why now? And at some point you have to just bow your head and say, not my will, but yours. And that's where you have to surrender and trust. And that's really hard when you're in the thick of it.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about your sister. I lost my baby sister about 2.5, 3 years ago.
Thank you.
It's I don't they can't put in words sometimes things like that, and you can go along with the day, and then all of a sudden, out of somewhere, something hits you like Tammy liked doing that, whatever it was, or Tammy and I did that together.
Yeah,
and it hits you. Yeah, I get it.
All right. Well, any last thoughts? Any commentary on your book before we wrap this up? I want to give you a chance to just speak your mind.
I guess if I was going to say anything is, I worked on this thing as far as actual creating it almost 4 years. But in reality, I've been working on it for 67 years because I've been learning, even though I didn't know it a long time. I want to be able to reach people. I want to be a witness. I don't want to be the center of attention. I want to be a witness. My new goal in life is no longer to write the next huge hit. It's to go out and be able to witness. And I said that when I do my presentations, one of the things I tell them is I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to be a preacher. I don't have that kind of knowledge. But all of us are told to be witnesses. And I can witness through my stories, through what I've learned, and through my music. And so I will go for any opportunity such as this to be able to witness. And hopefully through the stories and the things that I've learned, I can help other people.
Absolutely. No, I 100% agree. And, I appreciate you taking time to share your book, your music, and your wisdom with us. And this has truly been a pleasure for me. I mean, I haven't finished the book, but sometimes you read the first couple chapters, and you're like, I'm going to finish this book. So you already know up front, and I do, just so the listeners know, this is, when I have guests on and I talk about the material, this is genuine. I plan to go, encourage people to buy this book, or I'll buy it for them if I have to. It's a good book. It's well written, and I know your intent is to get out there and witness through the book as well. So again, thank you for coming on here.
I can't thank you enough for letting me be here. I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
And let's stay in touch after this, okay?
Absolutely. I've got quite a few of the guests that have come on. I love hearing from them. I love talking with them. So that's a given, I think.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, folks. That's Kent Maxson. Again, you can get more information by going to kentmaxson.com, KentMaxson.com. Highly recommend his book and his music. Again, I put the links to his website as well as his social media in the show notes. Please go click on those. Give him some of your attention. It is well deserved. Until next time, keep loving your neighbors, dive into God's word daily, and may the Lord bless you and keep you and fill you with his peace. So God bless the listeners, and God bless you, Kent.
Thank you, buddy.
You've just finished listening to the My Ministry Mission podcast, where faith's transformative power comes to life. Please be sure to like and subscribe this podcast on your favorite app so you never miss an episode. Also be sure to check out today's show notes for great links and information you may have missed. Have a blessed week, and we'll see you next time.